Oh, hi, Mark. It seems like it's been a while since I've recorded a video, and that's probably because it's been a while since I've recorded a video. But, I finally got some motivation to record another video. It's about damn time. And this one's going to be my top 10 slasher movies of all time, by the way. Wearing the slasher shirt for this one. Lucy, I don't trust that cat. I'm be in here messing up the wet work. Hold on. Now the door's shut. I don't know. I don't know when I'll learn to just shut that door right off the bat so the cat doesn't walk in here. He's fine. He doesn't walk around and mess stuff up. But yeah, he just kind of sits around. But anyway, let's get into this list. So before I even start, actually, hold on, guys. Alright, sorry about that, guys. I was saying, before I even start, let me start off with the caveat that this is not a conclusive list. Like, Lucia, what are you doing there, man? I hate it when he just stands down there and stares at me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But, anyway, this is not a conclusive list. Obviously, this is my top 10 favorite. That doesn't mean it has to be your top 10 favorite. But then also, what I want to state about this list is that it may not even be my top 10 favorite. This is something that you probably realize if you're into horror movies as well, or literally into anything. It's hard to pick your top 10 favorite of that thing. It's just not easy to leave stuff out, and it's not easy to pick a top 10. It's a pretty difficult thing to do, especially considering slasher movies are they're my favorite. Slasher movies are my shit. So, yeah, so I do have a top 10 down here. It's not necessarily my definitive top 10. And I also have some honorable mentions that I just kind of want to mention. Because these movies, I think they just kind of deserve some love. I don't really think you ever hear anyone talk about them. Well, a couple of them you do hear people talk about, and they're just in my honorable mentions because I genuinely think that, they could, depending on the day of the week, they could end up in this list. And I think I'll mention those ones first. I literally have 6 honorable mentions over here, guys, so bear with me. But yeah, these first 3 are the ones that, depending on the day of the week, they could probably end up in my top 10 slashers. So it's really just kind of arbitrary that they didn't make it today. Blood Rage. This movie's really fun. I was just introduced to this film very recently, which is why it didn't end up in there. I don't feel that I've seen this film enough times to really put it in there. And I don't know that I've seen this movie enough times to fully appreciate it. But it is a really fun movie. Really over the top. That tagline, it's not cranberry sauce. I swear that's said 5 times in this movie. It's completely ridiculous. I watched this with my buddy at one point, and we were both laughing our asses off about how many times it's actually said in the film. But it has some pretty good kills. I think the kills are mildly overhyped in Blood Rage. I don't think they're as good as a lot of horror fans make them out to be, but they are pretty good. Just Before Dawn. This movie isn't really for the kills at all. This movie is more for the atmosphere and the beautiful cinematography. Just every shot in this movie. I live in Idaho, and so the cinematography in this movie very much so reminds me of the landscape around here. I think this movie was shot in Oregon or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what I read, that it was shot in Oregon, which I don't think is too far from Idaho. So that kind of makes sense, and it's very, very similar minus the waterfalls. Oregon has a lot more waterfalls than us, but everything else, I mean, that feels very much so like where I live, and so it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of eerie. I've always thought the woods was a fantastic setting for a horror movie. So honestly, if you set your movie in the woods, I'm kind of predetermined to like it a little more than I would have had it not been set in the woods. Perfect example of this. I like Killjoy 2 more than Killjoy 1. I don't like either of those movies. But Killjoy 2 is set in the woods. I think I'm getting that right. And so I do actually like it just a little more than Killjoy 1. That being said, I still don't like the film. But anyway, Just Before Dawn. Good movie. Very good movie. There is a kill in this movie, though, that's brutal. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The machete to a very sensitive place. Hatchet 2. So, obviously, this is another one of the ones that, I mean, depending on the day of the week, this could have easily made my list. I like all the Hatchet movies. It's kind of arbitrary, honestly, that I would have picked Hatchet 2 to go to this spot. The only Hatchet movie that it's like for sure wouldn't go anywhere near my top 10 is Victor Crowley. I like Victor Crowley, okay, but it's not top 10 material at all. But Hatchet 2, in my opinion, is probably the best of the bunch. That being said, I still really enjoy Hatchet 1 and 3, so it's just kind of, Hatchet 2 is the one that comes to my mind. If someone were to put a gun to my head and be like, what's your favorite Hatchet film? I'd probably say Hatchet 2. And then we're coming into the ones that I just don't think get sufficient love. I just don't think these movies get sufficient recognition. So that being said, these films aren't necessarily near top 10. These are just kind of a few underrated horror films, or slasher films, that I decided to throw in here last second. The Legend of the Psychotic Forest Ranger. So this one is just really fun and really cheesy. I won't say that I recommend this movie necessarily. I will say, if you're into stupid horror films, you know who you are. And if you're into really dumb horror movies with some stupid humor, Legend of the Psychotic Forest Ranger, I think, is for you. Honestly, it emulates 80s cheese. I don't even know if it does it well or poorly. Like, I genuinely couldn't even decide. But it's very funny. It's very funny. It plays on some of the cliches of the 80s movies. Like the character cliches. You know, there's one band of kids who are kind of led to believe are the main characters. And they are the main characters. But then halfway through the movie, there's another band of kids that are pretty much identical to the other. That come in. And it's just kind of playing on the horror movie character cliches, and I thought it was funny. But I think this movie's pretty funny, and I think it's worth a watch. I think it deserves a little more attention than it gets. Sweatshop. This movie I pick specifically because it is a brutal, bloody, gory slasher movie. This movie is brutal. Yeah, it has very little storyline. It's just, if you like your gore in your slasher movies, watch Sweatshop. I had a very good first experience watching this movie, too. I just remember I had bought a pizza from a very good local pizza place. I came back home and I watched pizza, and I ate pizza and I watched Sweatshop. So that was very... not necessarily a unique experience, because I like eating pizza and watching horror movies, but it's always a good experience when your first time watching a horror movie is eaten with some really choice pizza with some really top shelf shit. So, yeah. But Sweatshop on its own, without the pizza, is pretty fantastic, honestly. Just the kills in it are crazy. And then this is a film that I am showing off specifically for the kills. Again, this would not make top 10. I want people to be aware of it. 100 Tears. Yeah, this movie is crazy. This movie has like 30 kills in it. And most of them are on screen, if not all of them. It's pretty nuts, honestly. Yeah, the only, that's really the only good side to this movie. I mean, there are some funny character moments, but mostly 100 Tears is a film you watch for the kills. So, just kind of decided to show that one off. Alright, now we're actually getting into the top 10. 11 minutes into the video. Lucio, stop. Just sit down, man. Sit down. Good boy. Yes, you're a good boy. I don't know what the hell he does. I don't know. He just starts sniffing around, and then his nose takes him on a journey. Isn't that right? Yeah. Alright. So let's start. Number 10, again, with the obvious caveat of this is not the definitive top 10 list. I cannot say that enough, because I mean this is a list that I came up with in probably less than 10 minutes. So you can't take it too terribly seriously that these are my 10 definitive movies, because I didn't think about it like that hard. I did not want to give myself an aneurysm over this. So, number 10 is The Mutilator. This is a really, really fun movie. I actually did get introduced to this film just a little before I got introduced to Blood Rage. However, The Mutilator is a film that I've gone back and rewatched a lot, significantly more than Blood Rage. I find this movie super fun. And it's not even just the kills, it's just the whole feeling of The Mutilator is just really fun. I love the music selection. The opening title song, that's like one of the best opening title songs ever. It makes me feel like I'm watching a sitcom from the late 80s. You know, like it feels like an episode of Full House when it opens like, I pack my bags and I'm gonna go away. Gonna have a good time. I fucking love The Mutilator. It's so cheesy. So terribly cheesy. And then of course the scene, the blonde guy's death scene, I don't even remember his name. But that guy's a terrible actor, but he's very funny with his acting. You know, the guy that's like, I'm coming to get you. I love it. I love it. I love the cheesiness. Speaking of cheesiness, Bloody Bloody Bible Camp comes in at number 9. This movie, I think they really did a fantastic job of encapsulating 80s horror. Now, there is kind of parts of this movie that I'm not huge on. Specifically, the fact that it kind of portrays religious people as stupid. It portrays religion as stupid. Like this, I think really this whole movie is kind of a kick in the dick to religion. And I don't like that. Be totally honest, I don't know. And the way the writing goes with a lot of it is, it makes it out very much so to seem like the writers didn't know what they were talking about while they're trying to critique religion, as though they're bringing up valid points. Because I just know if you had some actual religious people on the set of this movie, they'd be like, that's false. I'm not a religious person. I'm just saying that this movie it goes very one way as far as ideology goes, and it doesn't. I mean, there's no voice on the other way, and the only voice really the other way, only religious voice is that's made out to be comedic by this movie. All that being said, I do think this movie's funny. I think the ways that it makes fun of religion is funny. Some of it, like the gay priest cliche, that's funny. That actually happens. Or Ron Jeremy as Jesus. That is hilarious. All right, that's not even offensive to me. That is just absolutely hysterical. So this movie is actually, it's very, very funny. But on top of that, I personally think the kills in this movie are great. So, this movie could have honestly easily been higher on the list, or lower on the list, however you want to look at it. Because I love the kills in this movie, and for the most part, I love the humor in this movie. There's even some parts where this movie comes off as a little creepy. Where the killer in this film, this fella right there, is kind of sitting in the dark near this sort of shrine or vigil or whatever. Not a vigil, but it was a shrine with candles burning everywhere and a picture of Jesus, and obviously this guy's a religious fanatic that's been mentally screwed up, and he's sitting there in the dark going, Jesus loves me, that I know. Or so the Bible tells me so. And he keeps singing that. And it's creepy in that sort of, in the original Prom Night movie, where the killer is calling people and he's tapping his pencil on the notepad. It's creepy in that sort of way. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but that, to me, it feels like the same sort of thing. But yeah, I think this movie, minus some of the things in this movie that they just couldn't have gotten away with saying back in 1984, this movie feels like it came out in 1984. It's crazy. So in at number 8, we have Laid to Rest. So this film is a really good slasher film. It introduces us to Chrome Skull, which in my opinion is one of the most badass slasher villains, horror villains ever. This guy, I really wish they would have just made a full-blown franchise out of this. I genuinely think that Laid to Rest is franchise material, at the very least trilogy material. It blows my mind that Laid to Rest only got one sequel. And the sequel that it did get wasn't even that good, but the thing about the sequel to Laid to Rest is it actually built quite a bit on the world of Laid to Rest. There was quite a bit of world building and just it's expanding on the lore of Chrome Skull, and it's kind of mind-blowing that they never did anything else with it. But here in the first movie, we have Chrome Skull, who is just this stoic, mysterious badass. You don't know if he's mortal, you don't know if he's immortal. Somewhere along the lines, we kind of figure out that he's mortal because he's patching himself up, he's gluing his wounds back together, which is something that's really cool, because we never really see horror villains do this. Michael Myers gets shot and he just kind of walks around with a gun wound in him for the next hour and a half of the movie. That's just in our time. In his time, it's probably been 2 days still walking around with a gunshot at him. But in this movie, we see him patching up wounds and stuff, and it's really cool. But not only that, this movie has some really brutal kills, and of course that's something I'm huge on. The kills in this movie are mind-blowing. So, Laid to Rest, definitely something I recommend. Alright, in at number 7 here, we have Madman. this is a movie that I think has a lot of mixed opinions on it. I think there's a lot of fans of this movie, and I think there's a lot of people that watch this movie and they're like, what are you people on about? Like, what's so great about this movie to you? Well, again, this movie's based in the woods, which gives it points. But it very much so has a great, like, 80s atmosphere. And first of all, that the campfire scene in the beginning of the movie, that's great. I think even people that don't like this movie like that campfire scene. Like, it's a great scene. But then, I think a lot of people who don't like this movie, like, one of their reasons for it is that it's boring, and I don't get that. I think the characters are sufficiently cheesy and entertaining to where it's just, I like watching these characters. I think these characters are completely ridiculous and hilarious to where I can watch them. Like that one scene, and of course this is just the scene that comes to my head, but, or comes to mind, but there's this one scene where they're all laying down, and it was so cheesy. I mean, they're all laying down, their legs opposite each other. Like, one person's laying this way, one person's laying that way, and they're all, like, in a line of 4 people in front of a fireplace. And they're all just talking. They all look like they're, like, stoned or something, and the one guy's like, he starts going on about how you never know what's going through someone's mind. And he starts talking about himself, like, and you're thinking to yourself, who is this man? Where did he come from? And it's the funniest, most cheesy shit of all time. I absolutely love that. The only part in this movie that I'm not actually huge on is the sex scene. That scene's awkward as hell. Like, I'm not even joking. Sometimes I will fast forward that scene when I'm alone. I just don't like it. Like, it makes me feel super weirded out. Like, why are you spinning around in a hot tub looking at each other sensually for like 5 minutes? I swear to God, that scene has to go on for like 5 minutes. And then it's just like foggy windows. It's like shots of foggy windows and Galen Ross moaning for some reason. I don't like that scene. I really don't like the sex scene in this movie. It's super awkward and just gross. But other than that, I think Madman's really fun. And another thing, I've heard people say the kills aren't great in this movie. I actually really like the kills. I think the kills are super awesome. The initial, like, throat slash, I'm pretty sure that was the first, like, kill in the movie, like, first of the actual cast of the movie to get killed off, because I think there was a flashback where it shows Madman Mars, like, killing his family really briefly, but, like, that initial kill with the throat slash, and he's got, like, these big gnarled nails, and he just swipes, and big chunk of this guy's throat is just missing, and it's like he ripped his throat out with his bare hand. That's cool to me. The hanging wasn't bad. I think they actually found a really neat way to make that hanging feel a lot more gnarly than it could have. Like, they easily could have just kind of had him hang him and then, like, do a shot of his feet and then just show his feet stop kicking. I feel like that's what a lot of movies would do right there. I feel like that's what a lot of slasher movies would do even. But not in this film. In this film, he actually, like, he's trying to save himself from hanging. And he's, like, pulling himself up onto the tree branch. And he successfully does it. And he's able to hold himself there for a while. And he's, like, thinking, okay, I got myself out of this, sort of. And Madman Mars just walks over to him. And he grabs him by the belt loop. At which point, the victim starts screaming. And he just yanks down on his belt loop. And he comes down, and you just hear his neck crack. Very cool, very brutal way to do a hanging scene. But then the last kill scene I want to talk about in this movie is the decapitation with the car. That is so ridiculous, but I absolutely love it. Where she's like checking the engine, and Madman Mars is standing on the car, and he jumps down on the hood, and the hood decapitates her. Just absolutely incredible. I love Madman. One of the most rewatchable slasher films of all time to me. One of the most rewatchable movies of all time. Honestly, I love watching that movie. All right, so in at number 6, we have Scream. So the thing about Scream is I don't actually think this is a great slasher film, and this is going to be a theme that replays itself later in the video, me saying, I don't think this is a great slasher film. The thing about it is it's not a great slasher film, but it's a great film. It's very funny, and it's just really fun to watch. This is a movie that I quote constantly. It doesn't even have to be in context. Like, you know, I find the lines in this movie hilarious. What are the ones that I quote the most? It's definitely, my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. I randomly say that shit. Or, is it true that you found her pancreas in the mailbox? And besides, it takes a man to do something like that. It's called tact, fuck rag. Like, this movie has so many great lines in it. I love Scream. I think that it's a really funny movie. I love it for the quotes alone. I love that scene where Jamie Kennedy is sitting on the couch and he's talking to the movie he's watching. Of course, he's watching Halloween, the original 1978 one. He's like, oh, you know he's around, Jamie. Turn around, Jamie. Turn around. And then behind the actor, Jamie Kennedy, Ghostface is walking. And he's talking to the TV. But then it's also a massive fourth wall break because his name is Jamie and he's behind him. But yeah, I love Scream. I think this movie's hysterical, and that opening scene with Drew Barrymore is incredible as well. That's one of the first. I think that's one of the first scenes. Hold on, guys. I'm getting a call. Okay. I guess my movie's here from Amazon. I appreciate her letting me know. Anywho, so that was one of the first scenes, like, in a horror movie. The beginning scene of Scream with Drew Barrymore. It genuinely gave me chills. That score that comes in, it's such an emotional score. It really is. I mean, it's an emotional scene in general. That brutal killing of Drew Barrymore's character within, like, 10 feet of her parents, but her parents can't hear her. And then her parents pick up the phone, and that emotional music kicks in. And they just hear Drew Barrymore, like, breathing. And then they go outside, and they find her hanging from a tree with that, again, super emotional music, which I love. I love the Scream scores. Like, other than the soundtracks, which the soundtracks in all of these movies are great, but the score as well, that super emotional kind of guttural score, amazing. I personally think the original Scream is a perfect 10. I love Scream, but again, not like a fantastic slasher movie. It's not a traditional slasher movie. It is definitely like a new wave sort of slasher, but it's still a slasher. All right, so in at number 5. Oh, and also, guys, I don't know if I stated this before, but it doesn't really matter what place these are in, because just like how some of these honorable mentions could have ended up in this top 10 list easily, I could have swapped around these. They really could go at any place other than maybe, like, literally other than number 1. So, number 1 is the only one that really has, like, a definitive, this is my number 1. So, anyway. In at number 5, we have My Bloody Valentine. This is a movie I'm pretty big on. I think even the first time I watched it, I was pretty big on it. I have this weird thing where I like to watch the rated cut of a film before I see the unrated cut. That was just a mistake with this movie. Honestly, there's no reason to watch the rated cut of this film. The unrated cut of My Bloody Valentine is so much better. It's so much better. It makes the kills amazing. I mean, we actually get to see them in this cut. There's just no excuse to not watch the unrated cut of My Bloody Valentine. There's even like a note at the beginning from the director, which I thought was really cool, where he acknowledges that this whole unrated cut, it's like, this is like a love letter to our special effects guys. Like, this is the whole reason that we've recovered all this footage, is like to pay ode to the special effects guys' hard work. At least that was the gist of the thing. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but and it shows. I mean, you watch the rated cut of this movie and the unrated cut, it's night and day. It is night and day the amount of gore that's in this movie. This is a gory slasher movie. But you do have to watch the unrated cut. And this is, of course, the original 1981 My Bloody Valentine. I do like the remake, but it's not my favorite film. That movie does have some good kills in it, but I don't know. I'm an 80s guy, so if, there's an original 80s movie, I'll probably prefer it. There's a good chance. Not to mention the killer in this movie looks very cool. Something that bothers me about this movie, though. This gets on my nerves. Not even joking a little bit or exaggerating when I say it gets on my nerves. Like, it bothers me when I see people say this. When I see people talking about killers from movies, and they're like, so, like, who do you like better, I'm just gonna use two random killers. Do you like Madman Mars better or Harry Warden from My Bloody Valentine? It's like, Madman Mars or Harry Warden? Well, I'll take Madman Mars, because we only see Harry Warden kill one singular person in this movie. That's what really gets me. People, they only remember that Harry Warden's name is mentioned a bunch during the movie. Harry Warden is not the killer in this film. Harry Warden kills like one person in this movie. I mean, technically, behind the scenes, he killed a lot more people, but it's not shown. The only time we ever see Harry Warden kill anyone is through flashbacks. It's through flashbacks. He doesn't kill a single member of the main cast. Harry Warden is dead throughout this whole movie. Axel Palmer is the killer in this movie. I don't understand how that's so difficult to comprehend. I mean, genuinely, there are like hardcore horror fans that still refer to Harry Warden as the My Bloody Valentine killer. And that's crazy to me. The killer is Axel Palmer. Get your shit together. Like, I don't understand how is it a lack of watching the film? Like, did you watch the film once, go, yeah, that's pretty cool, and then like 2 years later you still haven't watched it again, and you just remember the name Harry Warden because it was said a bunch in the movie, and you're like, oh yeah, Harry Warden, the My Bloody Valentine guy. I don't know. It really, I guess Harry Warden is a more like slasher villain name than Axel Palmer. But honestly, Axel Palmer is the killer in this movie. It's not Harry Warden. And it drives me up a wall that people constantly, Harry Warden, Harry Warden, Harry Warden. No, Axel Palmer. It drives me crazy. So in at number 4, we have Intruder, 1989's Intruder. This is another movie that I've heard if you don't watch the unrated cut, your experience could be seriously hindered. Because honestly, the kills are amazing in this movie. But, I mean, I guess there's a rated cut out there or something where most of the kills are cut out, which is wild to me. Why would you make a movie this crazy in kills and then just cut most of the kills? It's nutty. I mean, this movie has so many incredible kills. Literally every one of them I love. If it's not an on-screen kill, then it's a funny edit. Like the first kill of the movie, it's almost disappointing, and you almost get this sense of like, oh, okay, here we go. It's just gonna be a cutaway movie. It's not, but the first kill is a cutaway kill, and so looking at it in hindsight, I do think the first kill's very amusing, because he has his knife up here, and he brings his knife down, and there's this rough cut, like this quick edit to the produce guy chopping a watermelon in half, and that was really amusing. There's a meat hook kill in this movie where someone gets stabbed up into their jaw with a meat hook and hung on a meat hook. There's a simple stabbing in this movie where he like stabs someone in the stomach and blood just starts spraying everywhere like it's on a pressure hose or something. It's incredible. And then of course the two best kills in this movie are the bandsaw kill, where literally he takes this guy's head and puts it on a table, and he starts cutting it in half with a bandsaw. It goes from like right here across, and it's just like cutting right there above the jawline, and just he cuts his head in half. And then another incredible kill in this movie was the Baylor kill, where he puts this guy's head. It was Bub, which I'll get into that in a second. I love Bub. But he puts Bub's head in the trash compactor into the baler, and he presses to compress, and it just crushes his head in. His whole head gets caved in. But I love some of the characters in this movie. As I was saying earlier with Bub, this is another movie that I quote endlessly, but I just quote Bub. I mean, the killer has some good lines too, but it's Bub. It's Bub, man. Like, I have a coworker named Tim, and you know, I will constantly, like, I can't help but do a little Bub impression, like a lot of the time when I see him at work. I'll be like, Tim, this isn't amusing, Tim. Or what's it? That same scene, Tim, this isn't amusing, Tim. I will often just go off on the tangent that he goes into in that movie just to get a laugh out of people. And it's like, oh, you think you're going to give old Bub another wedgie, huh, Tim? Well, I really think not. Because I had the foresight not to wear any underwear today, Tim. I fucking love that. Another great one. I mean, he's walking back from that scene that just happened, and he finds Tim, and Tim's dead, and he's like, oh, look who it is, Tim, what a surprise. He's trying to talk to him, he's like, what are you, catatonic, Tim? I love the way Bub talks. I love the way he talks. Anal itch got you down? Or that scene where he's talking to the chick who gets killed first, and he's talking about how Craig, basically our red herring of the film, used to be really quite cool, and he's like talking about how one night he and Craig got into it, and he's like, and I swear to God, if my brother hadn't hit him over the head repeatedly with a blender, I might not be here today. And she's like, a blender? He's like, yeah, a Hamilton Beach blender. I love it. I could quote this movie all day, so I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop with the Intruder quotes, but I absolutely love this movie. Again, Bub's character makes me so endlessly happy. The only thing with this movie is my appreciation for it has kind of waned since I work in a grocery store now. So it's kind of like being around grocery stores, seeing grocery stores and stuff. Like, it's kind of just like, I look at this all day. Like, I don't need that in my life right now. So I don't watch it as often as I used to, just because it kind of weirds me out. Which is stupid. It doesn't weird me out in the sense that it scares me. It weirds me out in the sense that, like, ugh, another grocery store. Um, but it's very much so a fun movie, and I still do watch it. It's not like a film that I've completely stopped watching because I work in a grocery store, but it is still a very fun film. I highly recommend Intruder. I probably could have gushed about that movie for another 20 minutes. All right, so in at number 3, I'm cheating. And I'm cheating for number 3 and number 2. You're going to have to deal with it. I'm sorry. But in at number 3, we have Halloween. We're talking the 1978 Halloween and the 2018 Halloween. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people hate the 2018 Halloween. I don't comprehend why. Like, I have heard people say 2018's Halloween is the worst Halloween movie. That shit is crazy to me. Because, like, if you just look at this movie, like, how is this the worst Halloween movie? Michael Myers' mask is amazing in this movie. The kills are awesome, which I understand Halloween isn't about the kills. But, you know what? This is a slasher film. So I'm not going to get mad if they want to up the ante on the kills. It makes total sense. It makes total sense, especially when this movie came out like a year or two after Terrifier, which went batshit with the kills. But, you know, then you had, like, Michael Myers was just a presence in this movie. Like, the way Michael moved in this movie, it was like the original Michael Myers, except taller. He was... It's James Jude Courtney, right, in this movie? Yeah, I think so. We're gonna operate as if that's the case, because I'm pretty sure the guy's name is James Jude Courtney. James Jude Courtney in this movie is awesome as Michael Myers, just absolutely amazing. There is just some great brutality in here. And then a lot of people, I think, took issue with the fact that they retracted, the Laurie Michael sibling ship sort of thing, and yet he's still chasing Laurie. I don't think he's actually chasing Laurie in this movie. I think what's happening, and this is what I've personally thought since the very beginning, at least, you know, since this movie came out, I mean. I have always personally thought that Michael's not chasing Laurie in this movie, but rather because the theme of fate is very prominent in the Halloween movies. What I personally think is that it is through happenstance and through fate that Michael ends up at Laurie Strode's. Because if you pay attention to what Michael's doing, he just escapes and starts killing people. He just starts going house to house, and then he finds one victim and he follows that victim. He kills that victim, and then he finds another victim, follows that victim, kills that victim, finds another victim, which happens to be Laurie Strode's niece. How would he have known that? He couldn't have possibly known that. He follows her, but he can't kill her because she keeps escaping. And so just by happenstance, by fate, he ends up at Laurie Strode's house. And I think that's a perfectly fine explanation in this movie. Like, I don't think Michael needs to have this crazy motivation to go after Laurie Strode. I don't think he was going after Laurie Strode in this movie. Now, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends might go back and try to change that. I don't think they should. I honestly think this movie, the way it sits right now, it doesn't even look like Michael was going after Laurie. And I personally like that. Like, Michael's just an unstoppable machine, and it just so happened to be that fate led him to Laurie Strode's house. That's the theory I like. But then 1978's Halloween, I mean, this movie's amazing. You know, this is another one of those movies, though, that I will say it's not a very good slasher movie. Halloween is a phenomenal movie, but it is not a very good slasher movie. You know, it's missing the actual feel of like a true slasher movie. You know, it just isn't. It just isn't very slasherish at all. It is a slasher movie, but it's not very slasherish, and you know that did kind of cost it when it came to placing. But it's really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Halloween. I love the way Michael Myers is in this movie. Again, I love the way he moves. I love the mask. You know, this is the original Michael Myers mask, the William Shatner mask painted white. Scary as hell, you know. Michael moves liquid smooth in this movie. Again, you could even make the argument that it was kind of fate that brought him and Laurie together in this movie, even more so than the 2018 Halloween. Well, fate and the fact that he decided to stalk her the whole movie. Yeah. So in this one, it's just because he's a stalker. But, yeah, I mean, 1978's Halloween's great. It's just not a great slasher movie, which is why I kind of had to throw in 2018's Halloween as well, because I actually feel that that's a good slasher movie. Alright, so now we have in at number 2. Again, I said I was going to cheat. Friday the 13th, Part 6 and Part 3. So, Part 6, I'm a really big fan of, just because of how much fun it is. I mean, just everything about Part 6. Like, the soundtrack is great. We have some great Alice Cooper, like the Yanny's back, the man behind the mask. That was Alice Cooper, right? And then it had another Alice Cooper song in here too. What was the other one? Was it Shit, I forgot the other song. Was it Feed My Frankenstein that was in here? I don't remember. I don't remember, but it does have a great soundtrack in there. The kills in this movie are great, but they're not just great, they're also kind of silly. The kill where Jason grabs someone by the head and throws him into a tree, and it makes a smiley face. The smiley face was not there beforehand, by the way. He snatches someone out of their slippers in this movie. And then some of the edits early on in the movie with the old grave digger, where Tommy Jarvis is trying to convince the grave digger to dig up Jason's grave, and the grave digger's like, "Dig up Jason's grave? Does he think I'm some kind of fart head?" And then it cuts over to the kids at the camp, and they're all screaming, "Yes!" Also a really amusing thing where the guy's like, "Some folks got a really strange idea of entertainment," and he's like looking at the camera. I love all that shit. This is the most fun Friday the 13th movie for sure, the most self-aware. It's great. But then we have Friday the 13th Part 3. This is back when Friday the 13th was still taking itself semi-seriously. And this movie, the reason it's so high, this movie kicked off my love for gory slasher films. I mean, it was just, the kills in this movie, in my opinion, are on another level. I think this movie has the best kills of the entire franchise. Lucio, bud. Stop it. Okay. Good boy. In my opinion, this movie has the best kills of the entire franchise. My favorite kill, probably to this day, my favorite kill in any movie of all time. You guys are gonna think it's really stupid and really silly, but is when in the end of the movie with Rick, Jason is like behind him and he grabs him by the head and he starts squeezing and he caves in his skull and his eyeball just flies out of his face. To this day, I think that's my favorite kill of all time. It's silly, it's stupid, I know, but, you know, there's something about it that I can't get enough of. And I think it's also I think it has a lot to do with the fact that again, this movie is like the first time I was really introduced to these really kind of cool, inventive kills. I guess they're not too inventive, but you know what I mean? Like, the brutality in this movie. Like, the guy gets, or the lady, the chick gets a harpoon through the eye. This guy gets, like, cut in half, sort of, where he's doing a handstand. Jason just brings the machete down on him, on his crotchal regions. And I'm pretty sure we see intestines spill out or something. I'm not sure what it was supposed to be, but I know we see blood spill out and fall on the camera. And then, of course, the head crush in this movie. This movie had a lot of great kills. And then the final confrontation between Jason and the final girl. I don't even remember the final girl's name. I will say this movie doesn't have the best characters. I think it was Christy. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's Christy. But, you know, just great stuff. The final confrontation between her and Jason is awesome, in my opinion. And it really kind of cements who Jason is in that final confrontation. I don't think we had really seen that up until this point. Like, who Jason is and what he is. Where he gets an axe buried in his head. And he keeps coming for a second. You know, he gets hung, like thrown out of a barn with a noose around his neck, and he falls, and it looks like he's dead for like a solid minute. And then he just starts moving again. And he comes at her, and he catches an axe to the head. Like I said, just gets buried right there in his skull. And for a few seconds, he's still coming at her. And so I think it really kind of cements who Jason is as a character in Part 3 as well. So I really personally enjoy Part 3. And my number one, of course, my favorite slasher movie of all time and my second favorite horror movie of all time is Terrifier. Terrifier has the greatest kills of any slasher movie, I would say. Like, just the most brutal assortment of kills, mixed with this really evil, sadistic, scary villain. I mean, Art is genuinely scary. I've talked about this film a million times. I mean, this is the third top 10 list I'm making, and this is the third top 10 list I'm mentioning Terrifier in. I mean, just everything about this movie. I think the acting is actually pretty good. I know a lot of people shit on the acting in this movie. I don't. I genuinely don't think it's that bad. I've definitely seen worse. You know, and the way that the initial girl that we think is going to be the final girl, she fights back, and she fights back pretty hard. She beats the shit out of the guy, and she probably would have kicked his ass too had he not pulled out a gun. Every time he pulls that gun out in that scene, I don't know why, but I get reminded of that Eminem song. It's like Mr. Mischief with a trick up his sleeve. That's that line comes to my mind every single time I watch this movie without fail. I literally can't watch this film without thinking of that line. Art, of course, being Mr. Mischief, and the 9mm handgun that he pulls out being the trick up his sleeve. Yeah, I think Terrifier's great. Absolutely phenomenal. And I love the atmosphere in that movie. It's got a very good Halloween-y atmosphere. They go to a pizza place in the beginning, which, I don't know, just anything that can make me want to do something. I don't even know how to articulate that. Like, you know how when you see something in a movie, it's almost like product placement, where like you see someone drinking a Coke in a movie and you're like, oh shit, now I want Coke. Like, I that happens here in Terrifier, where they're in the pizza place, and like all of this feels very real as far as like the just the establishment itself, which of course I think that was a real pizza place that they shot in. And the employees feel very real. Like, it just makes me want to go get pizza. I don't know why, but yeah, guys, that's gonna do it for my top 10 slasher movies of all time. That was a long ass video. My voice hurts. So yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a big thank you if you made it here to the end, because holy shit, it's a long video. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.